August the 14th, 1981, New York City. Dominic "Sonny Black" Napolitano, a captain in the Bonanno crime family, walks into the Motion Lounge Bar in Brooklyn. He hands the barman the keys to his apartment, a large bundle of cash, and the diamond-encrusted rings from his fingers. He tells the barman he's going to a meeting and doesn't know if he's coming back. He is driven across town to a house in Staten Island. The meeting is in the basement. Sonny Black was killed because he had brought a spy, Donnie Brasco, into the inner sanctum of the Mafia. He was really Special Agent Joe Pistone.
Did I want to see him get killed? No. Would I rather have him gone to jail? Yeah.
Thanks to Pistone's 6 years undercover, over 200 mobsters will be convicted, and one of the biggest Mafia families brought down. It was the most successful undercover operation in FBI history. But the operation that would one day bring down the Mafia would start on a far smaller scale. In 1976, New York was facing a wave of truck hijackings.
These loads were sometimes worth $200,000-300,000. And the mob guys would hijack the truck, stick the truck up, take it, and then sell it to fences.
The FBI decided to initiate an undercover operation to target these fences in an effort to stem the flow of hijackings. They selected Joe Pistone for the operation. Pistone had racked up extensive undercover experience over his 15 years as an FBI agent.
I always worked undercover cases. I worked all criminal matters, bank robberies, prostitution cases, worked a lot of gambling cases.
Pistone had grown up in an Italian-American family in Paterson, New Jersey, and knew well the sort of people he might encounter undercover.
Growing up in a neighborhood, you always know who the mob guys are in the neighborhood, but, you know, my family's situation was, you keep away from those guys, don't get involved with them.
To get to the fences, the FBI created a cover for Pistone. A jewel thief.
We came up with burglar and jewel thief because when you're in an undercover situation, you can't become involved in any violence, crime of violence. So you come up with a legend that doesn't tend to lead toward violence. Not many jewel thieves in jail for murder, So I went to school, learned all about jewelry, precious gems, the locks, alarms, safes. So we took about 6-7 months to prepare for this operation.
With his training complete, Pistone was ready to embark on his mission. In 1976, he left FBI headquarters with a new ID as Donnie Brasco, unaware he would not return for over 6 years. His job was to find a way to infiltrate the hijackers.
You don't just walk into a place and say, hey, I'm Donnie Brasco, jewel thief. I want to start doing business with you. It doesn't work that way.
Pistone had moved from his home in New Jersey, leaving his wife and children behind, and rented an apartment in Manhattan.
The plan was we had certain bars and restaurants that we knew these guys hung out in. And the idea was for me to frequent these places and get my face seen, get known, and hopefully become engaged in conversation.
It would take many months until people trusted the new face as a local.
Well, the first 6 months I would just hit these different restaurants. Some were on the Upper East Side, some were down in Little Italy. I mean, they were basically all in Manhattan. I would just frequent, go in, sit at the bar, order a meal at the bar, order a drink at the bar, and just hang around for a couple hours. You can't form a pattern. You can't go into the same place the same day at the same time. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a 5-day-a-week job. It's a 7-day-a-week job.
For Pistone, it was slow and repetitive work.
Did I enjoy it? I endured it. I put it that way. I endured it. I'm not really a bar guy. I don't drink. I mean, you know, I'll drink one beer, maybe one glass of wine. I wasn't in love with being an undercover agent. To me, it was part of my job.
Finally, after 6 months of targeting the bars of Manhattan, Pistone thought that his face had become familiar enough, and he decided to try his luck with a barman whom he suspected had criminal connections.
I finally felt, well, I got to make a move here. Come in one night and, hey, Donnie, how you doing? Okay. We start talking, and I had a package of diamonds. And I said, I need X amount of money for these. Say $10,000. As an undercover, you got to know what the street price of stuff is we call swag. You know, the difference of buying these diamonds at Tiffany's than buying off somebody in the street. And he didn't say a word. He just picked it up, put it in his pocket.
Days passed, and despite regular visits back to the bar, the package was never mentioned by the barman or by the man he knew as Donnie Brasco. But a fortnight later, there's a breakthrough.
After about 2 weeks, I come in one night. He says, somebody left this for you. It's an envelope. I pick it up. And the money's in there.
It was the payment for the jewels. This was the first important step in establishing Pistone's credibility as the criminal Donnie Brasco.
Now he knows it, you know, I mean, I don't have to spell it out to him that I'm a jewel thief, you know? And it went from there.
Over the next few months, the barman started to invite Donnie out, introducing him to numerous contacts.
The places we went to were all after-hours joints, you know, gambling and after hours. And he would introduce me, you know, just as Donnie.
Pistone was being introduced as Donnie Brasco to all sorts of shadowy people. But one introduction in particular would become very significant. The man was known as Jilly, and was not only a fence and a truck hijacker, but was what the mob called a made guy.
Made, straightened out, good fellow, wise guy. All those terms mean the same thing. You've been officially inducted into a particular Mafia family.
Now, news that Pistone was directly involved with a made Mafia member changed the entire nature of the operation. The FBI seized the opportunity and encouraged Pistone to get in with Gilly and his crew. Pistone used all that he had learned at the FBI to convince them that he was a jewel thief, but they wanted to see the spoils of his crimes.
You have to be an earner, you know. They're not taking me in because they like my looks, you know. You have to see that I have the ability to make money.
Suddenly, Pistone needed to get hold of a lot more jewelry from his supposed robberies.
In the operation as a jewel thief, I mean, I wasn't going out robbing Tiffany's to get the jewels. Any jewelry that I brought around came from the FBI. It was confiscated jewelry that we got from U.S. Customs. You know, there was jewelry that was confiscated. Other times I would bring around watches.
As Pistone began handing over more and more jewelry, it seemed that he was convincing them that he was a genuine thief. But then, some of the gang members started asking for his help in their own robberies, breaking into homes, something he was reluctant to do as an FBI agent.
They'd ask me, you know, can you get by this alarm? Can you get in, you know? And a couple times I said, no, I can't bypass an alarm system. I can't, you know, I can't get into this place. I can't do this safe. And they got mad.
Pistone was called to a meeting by Gilly at his club with two other gangsters, Frankie and Patsy.
They locked the door. Patsy puts his gun on the table and he said, you know, Donnie, he said, unless you convince me that you're a really great jewel thief, he said, the only way you're going out of here is rolled up in that rug.
They began to question Pistone on every detail of his past.
Where are you from? Who did you know? What'd you do?
The questioning continued for 5 hours. Eventually, Gilly, convinced by Pistone's performance, called a halt to the meeting. But then, as Frankie and Patsy were backing down, Pistone took a massive gamble to increase his credibility.
If somebody calls you out on the street, you gotta be mad. And the only thing they're gonna understand here is some kind of force. So I hit Frankie. Patsy jumps on me, he starts punching me, starts beating me. But I can't do anything because he's a made guy. You can't hit a made guy. That's a penalty of death. So I just keep hitting Frankie. Then finally they break it up.
The fight didn't just make him seem a credible gangster, but it also gave Pistone the excuse to distance himself from the increasing violence of Gilly's crew.
I went to Gilly and I said, Gilly, you know, all due respect, but I don't want to be involved with these guys anymore. If they have something lined up, they have a score lined up, they have something they want to rob lined up, don't even tell me about it.
Believing Pistone was the real deal, Gilly introduced him to some major figures from another Mafia family, the Bonannos. First, he met Tony Mira.
Tony Mira was a major drug dealer, one mean guy. He was the type of guy, he just abused everybody, but he made tons of money for the family through his drug dealings.
And Mirror introduced him to Lefty Ruggiero, a hitman who had a reputed 23 killings to his name.
Lefty Ruggiero was what I would call 24-hour gangster. He was on being a gangster every minute of the day.
But Lefty Ruggiero had a trait that was invaluable for Pistone's operation.
He was a great historian as far as knowledge of the Mafia, how it worked and how it would work. And I gained a lot of valuable information from him.
Through Mirror and Ruggiero, Pistone was able to shine a torch on the inner workings of a Mafia family, something that the FBI, until then, had known surprisingly little about.
He could recount to us who was in, who was out. He could recount what rackets they were involved in. He could recount what's coming up in the future. The people he was involved in were particularly vicious. You know, who was going to kill who or who was on the outs.
In 1978, the operation had a major breakthrough. Tony Mirror was jailed for drug trafficking. And Lefty Ruggiero seized an opportunity to cash in on Pistone's skill as a good earner and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Pistone would operate exclusively under Lefty as his partner. He would now be much more closely involved in Bonanno family business. And critically, Lefty was part of a crew run by one of the most powerful captains in the Bonanno family, Dominic Sonny Black Napolitano.
Sonny Black was an effective, important leader, a capo. He had about 15 to 20 members in his crew, about 10 or 12 made guys, and probably at least 20 or 30 other known as associates or wannabes who hang around and work with the family. He dressed effectively like the consummate or quintessential mobster. T-shirts, dark suits, heavy on jewelry, rings, pinky rings, swaggered, talk tough.
Pistone was now hanging out daily with Sonny Black at his social club, the Motion Lounge in Brooklyn.
The average day in the life of a wise guy is not as exciting as you might think. You know, you might meet up at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. You hang out at the social club all day, and, you know, your conversation is about what you're going to rob, what you're going to steal, who's stealing from you, how much money you're making in this operation, how much money you're making in that operation. It's a steady grind every day.
Thanks to Pistone, the FBI were in a position they had never anticipated. They had an agent as an active member in a major crew in the New York Mafia.
There was a lot of excitement because up to this point, nobody had infiltrated to the point that they were running around with made guys in any family.
Pistone was now even better placed to gather material on a wide range of Mafia activities.
At this stage, I was gathering a lot of intelligence information, drug deals, extortion, hijacking, political corruption, politicians, law enforcement people that were corrupt. So it was a myriad of information.
But more than that, by working with Lefty, he was able to learn who the major players were in the Bonanno family and other New York families, giving the FBI names of captains and bosses.
I was finding out who the upper echelons, the structure of the family, who was basically running the family. So a lot of it had to do with intelligence information that we didn't know by doing investigations and that we weren't getting from informants. We showed we can go after and get the upper echelon versus, versus the guys on the bottom doing all the dirty work.
Pistone's intelligence was helping the FBI build a much clearer picture of not just how the Bonanno family was run, but the whole Mafia. And what emerged was how much the various Mafia families were in fact cooperating with each other.
You came to realize that this was not a monolithic organization. These folks were working together. Might have been individual families that, for work purposes and for power purposes, but in the scheme of things, they were working together, sharing these criminal activities.
And Pistone's success was not limited to just the Mafia in New York. With his strong credibility, he could now vouch for other undercover agents and instigate connections with other Mafia families, as far away as Los Angeles. In Milwaukee, he was so successful, he even managed to set up a face-to-face meeting with the mob boss there, the first time an FBI agent had sat down with such a high-ranking mobster. In Florida also, the FBI had been attempting to infiltrate the Mafia. They had set up a club, the King's Court, which they had hoped would be a beacon for Florida's mobsters. Pistone saw a way to help the operation by suggesting that Sonny Black become a partner in the club. The idea appealed to Sonny, and he sent Pistone and Lefty to Florida to check it out. Pistone now discovered that, like many city wise guys, Lefty had hardly ever left his New York borough.
Everybody thinks that mob guys are so worldly and they know everything. I mean, they're really parochial, and Lefty was no different. Had no idea how to make a plane reservation, because a lot of time, most of the time, when they wanted to go somewhere, the plane tickets were, back in the day before the computers, they were stolen, from travel agents.
When Lefty saw the club, he reported favorably back to Sonny, and Sonny liked what he heard. But to operate in Florida, Sonny Black would still need the permission of the local Mafia, headed by Santo Trafficante.
That's when Sonny then starts moving ahead to get a meeting with Trafficking.
Sonny flew to Miami to meet the Florida boss to propose running illegal gambling operations together from the club. Trafficante agreed to the deal. It was a breathtaking achievement for the FBI.
Here we got two major bosses that we married up together to become involved in illegal activities with. I mean, unheard of. So that's, that was a big thing.
The FBI had the back office of the King's Court fully installed with microphones and cameras.
The King's Court was wired for audio and video, but it was only in the office, not the club, because the patrons were regular people who didn't know it was an FBI operation.
Pistone and other undercover agents started to stage drug deals with Mafia mobsters there.
What do you want, Jeanette, Tom? I walk in the place in this town.
It was a gold mine of intelligence for the FBI. But for the Bonannos, it was a major money-making operation. And Sonny Black loved it.
Every time you went to the club, it was packed. I mean, it was a big hit among the locals, and everybody that went in there was a citizen, So the club was making money. We're doing illegal gambling, casino nights, and illegal bingo games, which was big down there because of the elderly population. You can make a lot of money running bingo because they were taking the big cut for themselves.
Pistone was impressing Sonny Black, So much so that Sonny asked him to head up the operation in Florida. But more importantly for the FBI, in another promotion for Pistone, he no longer had to report to Lefty Ruggiero, but would answer directly to Sonny Black. Pistone now had access to one of the most important captains in the New York Mafia. Nothing like this had ever been done before. Now based in Florida, on trips back to New York, Pistone would even stay at Sonny's house, and they would spend hours feeding Sonny's racing pigeons on his roof.
I got to know Sonny Black pretty good, and although he was a stone-cold killer and a gangster, Sonny was the kind of guy you could spend time with. I mean, he would talk about the gambling, the drugs. He would talk about, who's the power in the family, all that. But you could also have other conversations with him. He loved those pigeons. Like I said, we'd go up every morning and he'd feed them and change their water and give me a history lessons on pigeons. I mean, I never listened to it, but I had told the FBI guys, when those pigeon coops come down, you can say goodbye to Sonny Black. He's gone.
Pistone's close relationship with Sonny Black now gave him even more access to information within the Mafia. He discovered that one faction of the Bonanno family, recent Sicilian immigrants known as Zips, were enormous drug importers. They used a series of pizza restaurants to distribute the drugs.
The Zips were Sicilians brought over to run the pizza shops that they had all over New York and Pennsylvania, not only to distribute the heroin, but to use these Zips for murders and anything else that they needed from them.
Based on Pistone's information, the FBI launched a major investigation into the Zips pizza restaurant drug trade. But they couldn't act on it immediately, because if Pistone's identity were revealed to the Mafia, he would be killed instantly.
Every day going to work like that, knowing he could easily be made or betrayed, and his life would have been worthless. And yet he did it for years.
As long as the person's undercover, you can't do anything with that information until they surface, or you jeopardize them.
But in fact, by now, there was a far more serious threat to Pistone's life. Tony Mira, Pistone's first contact in the Mafia, was released from jail and furious that Pistone was earning money from Sonny Black and Lefty. He wanted revenge.
What you have to remember, there's a lot of jealousy and envy in the mob. Mira gets out of jail and he's jealous because he thinks I'm making a lot of money and because I'm real close to Sonny Black. So he goes and he goes to his captain and says that I should be with him and not Lefty because he's the one that brought me around.
But Sonny, keen to keep his cut of Pistone's earnings, was reluctant to pass him back to Mira.
Mira goes to Sonny and Sonny says no.
Mira then took his complaint a stage further and called for the other capos to arbitrate the decision. Lefty and Sonny were called on to defend their claim on Pistone in a series of meetings. Lefty would phone Pistone after each one to let him know what was happening, and Pistone would secretly record their conversations.
Hey, Donnie, let me tell you something. I had a 4.5-hour meeting about you today.
For what?
Donnie, don't say for what.
Well, Left, you say don't say for what. How do I know? I don't even know what you're talking about.
I won you and I'm going to keep you.
Well, that's right.
All right? I'm not giving you up, and so is Sonny. We own Donnie, and we giving up Rocky. Now you give up my prick, I said. I won you. I'm not giving you up. I'll die with you.
Well, how does Sonny stand tonight with us?
What's he stand? He's not giving you up. Not giving you up. Ain't nobody having you.
Hey, I don't want no part of Mirror.
Sonny Black and Lefty won and got to keep Pistone as their own. But Mirror wasn't finished yet, and in an act of revenge, he would do something that would instantly threaten Pistone's life.
So he figures, well, if I can't have him, nobody's going to have him. So then what Mirror does is he puts in the beef with all the captains that I stole $250,000 in a drug deal. And, you know, that's a no-no. You don't steal money from the family.
The severity of the accusations demanded a series of high-level meetings, or sit-downs. A sit-down was, in effect, a trial. High-ranking mobsters from the Bonanno family in New York, including some of the Sicilian Zips and Bonannos from far away as Canada, were called in to judge the accusations leveled at Pistone. If Pistone were found guilty, he would be executed immediately.
If you lose a sit-down, they're not going to, you're going to get killed right then. I mean, it's not like, you know, they're going to give you, you know, we're going to give you a month to get your affairs in order.
Rocky admitted that you made $250,000.
Who did Rocky tell you?
After he murdered his men. Don't you understand?
He's a lying son of... He's a lying son of... He's lying, Left.
I don't give a fuck.
He's a liar. I'd never cut any junk money up with him.
Why don't fucking count?
Why does this guy want to, you know, start...
He wants you bad.
So what do we do now?
I don't give a fuck, but you can't
I ain't
help
afraid
me
of
out.
anybody.
You can't help me out. I have to handle it. Without you.
And I ain't afraid of Mirror either. When's this thing all gonna end with this
It
guy?
ain't gonna end.
Sonny spent 3 hours fighting for Donnie. Eventually, his life was spared.
Sonny Black wins the sit-down.
Pistone may have survived the sit-down, but he had made a serious enemy of Tony Mirror. The FBI were concerned the operation was becoming too dangerous and began to consider pulling Pistone out.
They were talking about closing the operation down.
But Pistone thought otherwise and managed to convince his boss, Jules Bonavolonte, to continue just a little while longer.
I convinced Jules, there's nothing to worry about, you know? I mean, I can handle this.
By the end of 1980, FBI agent Joe Pistone had been undercover in the Mafia for nearly 5 years. His intelligence had been invaluable to the FBI. They had wiretaps on senior members of the New York Mafia, cases open on Sicilian heroin trafficking, the Milwaukee mob, and Colombian drug deals in Florida. And as a trusted confidant to one of the most powerful captains in the New York Mafia, the outlook for Pistone and the FBI was looking good. But soon, Pistone's operation was to become far more complicated. In Florida, a Las Vegas night was planned for the King's Court, an illegal gambling evening with craps, roulette wheels, and blackjack. The event was scheduled for January the 17th, 1981. Sonny and a number of New York wise guys had flown down for the event. The local sheriff had been paid to turn a blind eye.
I was right there when he paid the guy off. The guy assured us that everything was taken care of, you know.
At first, the evening went well.
The place was mobbed. King's Court was mobbed. Had all kind of money. I mean, we were making all kind of money.
But when the night was in full swing, something went terribly wrong. the club was raided by the local police. And Sonny, who refused to provide identification, was taken to jail. He was bailed the following day, but was furious.
Sonny spent the night in a can. He wasn't too happy the next day, believe me. He wasn't too happy the next day.
Sonny Black was convinced there must have been a rat. Pistone had to be concerned that suspicion might fall on him. But as the crew flew back to New York, there was further cause for concern. Months earlier, in a move to impress his mob connections in Florida, Pistone had borrowed a luxury boat from the FBI for a fishing trip with Lefty. But now, Lefty spotted an article in a magazine detailing an FBI sting operation in which agents had posed as Arab sheikhs to entrap corrupt congressmen. The article included a picture of a boat used in the operation. It was the same boat that Pistone had used to impress Lefty Ruggiero.
The boat that we used was on the front page of Newsweek. There was another major undercover operation going called Abscam. It wasn't supposed to get the surface for a long time. But what happened was it got exposed.
Lefty demanded to know how Donnie had got hold of an FBI boat.
I told Lefty, remember this girl we met out in San Diego? And, you know, do you remember she said her brother had a boat in Miami and that we can use it any time? So I said, look, Left, I said, you were there, you know. Even if it is a government boat, they were after, you know, they're after the politicians. They weren't after us. They never came after us. So I got away with that one.
Lefty seemed to buy his story, but Pistone could not be sure he was still completely trusted by either Lefty or Sonny. But then any doubts he might have had disappeared when Pistone was given an astonishing vote of confidence from Sonny Black. Sonny Black proposed Pistone for full membership of the Mafia.
He had to go to every captain in the family and say, hey, I'm going to propose Donnie Brasco. You guys have anything against Donnie? And if one captain says a negative thing, they can't propose you. And all the other captains okayed it.
As a made man, it would be like a letter of introduction to some of the most powerful mobsters in America. Pistone would have much greater access to other parts of the Mafia and some of their most closely guarded secrets. But at FBI headquarters, there was real concern. It was all very well having an agent inside the Mafia, but having an agent inducted to a senior level could compromise the entire operation.
Theoretically, to become a member, you would have had to kill somebody. And their position was that even though he had not had to kill somebody, that would destroy his credibility before the courts.
And dramatic events within the Bonanno family power structure increased concerns in the FBI. The Bonanno family was in the midst of a civil war. And Sonny Black was right at the forefront of it. It had begun 2 years earlier when Sonny Black had taken part in the murder of the boss of his own family, Carmine Galante. And now, Sonny was ordered to take out 3 rival capos. As the violence escalated, there was an increasing risk that Pistone could be killed in the crossfire.
Now that this war was going on, this is the first time everybody's carrying a gun now. Sonny Black gave me a gun to carry. Because guys that were with the other 3 captains were looking to kill us.
He was involved in some of the most vicious territorial wars that were going on organized crime, so he was right there at the focus point.
And then, Sonny Black put Pistone in a position the FBI had been desperate to avoid. Sonny ordered Pistone to track down a rival mobster, Bruno Indelicato, and kill him.
So Sonny sends me to Florida because that's where they thought Bruno was. And the plan was if I found him, I'd call the FBI, they'd snatch him, we'd make it look like a hit, and then I can go back and say, you know, I took care of him.
But the FBI decided it was far too dangerous and ordered Pistone to pull out of the 6-year operation.
When we ended the operation, he was very upset because I'm sure he felt that if he could have been made, his credibility would have been enhanced.
Can you imagine the kick in the ass when it comes out, you know, Bonanno Mafia family makes undercover FBI agent? But I couldn't convince him, so we had to surface.
Two weeks later, with Pistone safely out of the way, Sonny was visited at his club by FBI agents. The agents presented a picture of the 3 of them with a 4th man, one of their most trusted crew members. You know this man as Donnie Brasco. He is, in fact, an FBI agent.
And Sonny said, well, if I see him around, then now I'll know. I mean, he really didn't believe it.
But eventually, Sonny Black began to accept the truth, and the FBI watched as he retreated to his pigeon coop to think over his options. He realized that if Donnie Brasco were an undercover agent, then, as the man responsible for bringing him into the Mafia, he was sure to be killed.
The FBI offered him protection. All he had to do was come forward. He said no. He knew what the results might be, but he wouldn't betray his oath. He decided to go down at the end, and he knew pretty much that he was on a hit list.
2 weeks later, Sonny Black was called to a meeting.
I didn't want to see him get killed, but, you know, he brought it upon himself. You know, when the agents went to talk to him, he could have easily called them later on and said, look, I'm coming in, you know. What kind of deal can I make? But he didn't. He was a real man and he was a real gangster. And that's how we left it. I said, you know, when you see those pigeon coops on the top of Sonny's apartment building getting torn down, he's dead. 17 days later, they start taking the pigeon coops down. That's when they killed him.
Sonny's body was found dumped in a New York river. Symbolically, his hands, which had welcomed an FBI agent into the Mafia, had been cut off. The mob now closed in on anyone who had been involved with Donnie Brasco.
They killed Sonny Black. They killed Tony Mira. They killed Jilly. Did I want to see him get killed? No. Would I rather have him gone to jail? Yeah. But it wasn't my doing, in my mind, that got him killed.
The FBI learned that Lefty Ruggiero had been summoned to a meeting where he would be murdered. They intercepted him and arrested him.
He thought it was a hit team, you know, because the agents were in surveillance clothes, just in, you know, nondescript cars. And he thought he was going to get clipped.
With Pistone now out of the firing range, the FBI used his information to go after hundreds of Mafia members.
4 years ago, a petty jewel thief known as Donnie Brasco began working his way up inside the mob. Last year, in a New York trial, Brasco unmasked himself. His real name? Joseph Pistone, undercover agent in the FBI.
I think I testified in about 17 different trials. We had 235 convictions. In New York, you know, we knocked out the Bonanno family to a great extent.
Bonanno family, as I know of it, I think they are nothing but a street gang at this point in time.
In Milwaukee, we took down the whole family. You know, the boss, the underboss, a couple of his captains. The same thing in Florida, you know.
A federal grand jury in Tampa today indicted Santo Trafficante and 11 others on racketeering charges.
That include gambling, extortion, bribery, and narcotics.
In 1985, Pistone testified in the trial of the Sicilian heroin traffickers. Known as the Pizza Connection, it was one of the longest trials in American history.
All the principal defendants in this case were convicted. 18 of 19 defendants overall were convicted. It's an outstanding result. We couldn't have hoped for anything better. And it is a tremendous victory for the effort against the Mafia.
And in what became known as the Commission Trial, Pistone identified the heads of the New York families.
They're calling it the biggest sweep of underworld leadership in nearly 30 years. 5 reputed godfathers arrested and indicted in New York.
His evidence and testimony was central in securing convictions on 151 counts. Pistone's operations spelled the beginning of the end for the mob, as gangsters at all levels of the Mafia were sent to jail. Amongst them was Lefty Ruggiero, imprisoned for conspiring to murder the 3 capos, distributing drugs, extortion, bank robbery, and illegal gambling in Florida.
So he spent like 15 years in jail. I hate to be the guy that was his cellmate or guard, because he had to be the biggest pain in the arse there ever was.
The Mafia responded by placing a $500,000 bounty on Pistone's head. To this day, Agent Joseph Pistone lives under a pseudonym in an undisclosed location.